start all sorts of wheels. So if I seem to not be looking at you, it's because I'm trying to keep an eye on the target here. All sorts of places we're supposed to look. No, no, no. What? Sorry. Here we go. So welcome to Inner Fitness. And the topic I thought we could explore, because it's just so fascinating to me, is the balance or integration of silence or stillness into movement. And what does that look like spiritually in day-to-day life? So first of all, as always, let's start with a reflection. So seated comfortably, but the body still very much engaged, alert, active, yet no tension. That already is a balance. To be engaged, but not laboring, not tense. And I begin by bringing my focus completely into the present moment. The feeling that time has stopped. All roles and responsibilities and tasks are on pause. And I am completely free to focus 100% on the self, not the image, the self. And for that, I'm pulled to go inwards. The sense of going into a very quiet, calm, and clear space inside, where I can have a very clean, simple, transparent sense of looking at the self. No masks, no rationalizations, no defenses, all the walls and veils coming down. It's a relief just to be completely with the self, not the actions. I'm not reflecting on the actions I've performed. I'm reflecting on the state of the self. Am I anxious? Am I agitated? Or am I calm, peaceful, light? What is my state? Independent of what's going on around me, or maybe even inside me, what is the state of the self? At the very core, is it peaceful? This idea of I, the soul, the being, the thinker. Am I at peace? The image that comes into my mind is of a single drop of water. And when that drop of water touches the surface of a pool, a body of water, it sends ripples out. So much power in that single drop of water. My state of being is like that single drop of water. And that state ripples out, shapes everything else thoughts, the vision, the attitude, the feelings, and eventually the words and actions. Very simple. All I need to focus on is that single drop, the state of I, the being, the soul. Om Shanti. So welcome again. And this idea of integrating or balancing is sometimes the word used, blending stillness or silence with movement or sound. What that looks like, yes, in the outer fitness in terms of physical activity and how that might translate or be relevant to spirituality, and eventually the point of spirituality, which is peace and happiness, how that might have any connection. So first of all, exploring the physical metaphor, physically speaking, this idea of letting movement be inspired from a still or quiet state. So what do you think that might look like? Is it possible? Do you feel it's possible to have stillness or silence while coming into movement? They seem very opposite, stillness and movement. So can they be connected? Do they have any connection? This is just looking at the physical state to start. Can you think about, extrapolate, if you will, on what would that be like, moving from a place of stillness? Do you think that's possible? And how would that affect, again, talking about physical movement, how would that affect the quality of the movement? Any thoughts? Which can be shared in multiple ways through chat, or you can unmute yourself if you're joining us on Zoom. What would that be like?
So I can share one experience yesterday. So, yeah. So like I have done something, some work, and that was submitted to a senior program manager, and then he came up with the comments, and this is how I had been submitting same thing always. But then yesterday he chose to look into that into more detail, and he came up with, oh no, this is not correct, this is not correct, kind of thing. So the very first response of mine, but I always been submitting like that, and no one had commented so far, and now this is the first time he's commenting. And then all of a sudden I just had a thought, and I just calmed down. I said, that's fine, he commented, that's okay, let me fix this the thing what he wanted me to fix, right? So I it was so good a response, it was so wonderful a response, and the result was so good. How? So I just did whatever I needed to do. While I was doing that, and with a very calm mind, very calm mind, I discovered that one of my purchase order, he was running out of money. If I would not have looked into that, I would not have come to know that, oh, I'm running out of money and next month I'm not able to pay the vendor. So immediately, I just collected all those dots, and I just realized that, okay, how important and how significant it is that we operate from a very silent mind. The state of mind should be so silent, and the results are so amazing. It was really so. Yeah, it was very wonderful experience yesterday.
So it brought some accuracy.
Accuracy, yes,
In terms of your activity. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hemaben. Anyone else want to share? Yes, go ahead.
Um, Om Shanti. I think this is a perfect topic to be discussed. Earlier today, I was with Judy for integration.
A different kind of integration.
So we're talking of the physical fitness.
Yeah.
So I'm reflecting about physical stillness and what I had experienced this morning with the physical fitness teaching integration. So having a still mind in relation to perform the movement, I'm reflecting about the very foundation, of the movement. So physical stillness doesn't mean that you're totally thinking nothing, but going to the very core of the movement. So the knowledge is very important. So what I have learned is to reflect on the foundation of the movement, and it brings the proper technique and alignment and safety of the movement. So a still mind will give you that awareness of performing the movement in a safe and proper alignment, which will prevent any injury or discomfort in the physical body. So that's what I've experienced this morning, is to really go back to the foundation, because there was a moment that I want to go to the progression of the movement. I am aware of that, but deep inside, that foundation keeps on reminding me, because some of the participants are not into that kind of progression and they're not ready. So I have to show them the very foundation of the technique so they can gradually progress and then work on their own level of fitness.
Lovely. Thank you. So again, with Pauline sharing, I'm hearing, touching again on accuracy. And yes, the accuracy always begins at accuracy at the foundation, the basics. So the basics, and then you build on the basics. So when the basics are very strong and accurate and well aligned, and through silence, I'm able to be very sensitive to that alignment. And I know for me, it was the class Pauline was referring to was what we call more a boot camp interval training class. So it's very noisy, it's very active, it's very crazy. And many times if I'm in more of my spiritual gatherings and it comes up that I'm involved with teaching fitness, almost immediately they assume I'm teaching hatha yoga. They can't fathom teaching any other discipline because, spirituality is so meditative. And so the idea of teaching anything but hatha yoga, and I always laugh because that's the one thing I'm actually not certified in, is hatha yoga. So I don't teach, well, unfortunately people think I do, so I'm so often put into teaching those classes, but I'm not certified. So yes, it's these really quite active and noisy and high energy interval training classes. And this morning I was taking more mindful, what we call a mind body class just before the interval that had a focus on those basics that you're referring to, Pauline. So it was incredibly alignment focused. And I was just, as I was taking the class, I just kept feeling this feels so good because it gives such wonderful training on a physical level. And I do think it crosses over into spirituality because I, the soul, I'm always there, even when I come. Everything is spiritual, quite frankly, because I, the soul, am operating through the body. But I had this chance to really experience the connection between silence or that accuracy, being present, being clear, being aligned, and movement. Accuracy and movement. I really started to experience that. And it just feels so, I think that really is the definition of happiness, is to have integrity of alignment as you come into movement. And it requires silence to be able to be sensitive and aware of that integrity of alignment. One of the Olympic sports I find really fascinating. I've never done it. And to be honest with you, the roots of it are not very vegetarian, shall we say. It's biathlon. And in biathlon, it's a winter sport. And what you do is you very vigorous cross-country skiing, very vigorous. That's usually a sport on its own, is cross-country. So you're doing cross-country skiing and huffing and puffing and lots of exertion on the body. And then you have to get ready to aim and shoot at a target. And this whole sport is, sort of a replication of going out and hunting, right? You run, and then you have to be very quiet and still the body. And the training, I remember hearing from biathletes, so much of the training is to transition from that incredibly high energy into such a state of stillness that I'm able to focus. Your breath is so accelerated. You actually have such mastery over the breath, over the body, that you can become still. And what you both brought up, accurate. Hit the target. So the contrast is wonderful. And the fact that it blends these, I think, is what it appeals to me. I've always been so fascinated with the blending of stillness and movement, because I don't know, from very young, maybe from being in dance, because it's a natural part of ballet training, that you could tell the quality of the movement is so much better. There's so much more benefit for the body when there is that accuracy. And the accuracy comes from stillness or the silence. So how does that silence or stillness help to nurture accuracy? And as you were both sharing, I was thinking about that scene with Arjuna, who is in Hindu mythology, the Gita, Mahabharata, and he's the archer of these 5 brothers. He's the archer, the greatest archer in the world is how he's touted. And in this scene, he's with his archery master. And his archery master is teaching him the art of archery. And of course, it's a metaphor for teaching him meditation. And in this scene, there's such a focus on accuracy, which is what Arjuna represents. Many people, we have virtue cards, trays of virtue cards, angel cards, whatever you wish to call them. And everyone loves it when they get the angel, the virtue cards that are like love or compassion or acceptance or peace. They love these ones. But whenever they pull accuracy, it's like the boot camp virtue card. They don't seem quite as excited. Whereas I'm like, that is one of the best. That is one of the best. If you have accuracy, you are so lucky if you have accuracy. And maybe, again, it comes from movement. You just realize there is not the full benefit execution of the exercise without accuracy. It's just not possible, because alignment is so critical in movement, and it is essential in spirituality. So this accuracy. So in this scene, Arjuna, his archery teacher, is really trying to get him to really cultivate that accuracy, just the target, nothing else, just the target. And it talks about, going into that, it's called, the windless place where the candle flame is completely still and being able to focus and all of this. But you begin to see the connection between stillness or silence and accuracy. And I find whenever I am in a fitness class or a one-on-one training with a client, and I do tend to do almost, I'd say at least 70, 80% body weight, because it's a lot of focus on alignment when it's one-on-one. And we might have them balancing on unstable equipment, like an elephant on the ball, kneeling on the ball or on a Bosu train, but very unstable equipment they have to balance, even on one leg. And you can see at first they're kind of trying to grapple with it and clutching the floor with their feet or falling over. And you do give some mechanical cues because they're asking for it. But the cue that I always find most successful is, okay, I want you to imagine you're meditating. Even if they don't know how to meditate, they understand what that word means, what that might involve. Just become very meditative, very quiet, very still. And in that moment, they're able to become aware of their alignment, and they begin to balance. So the connection is that the awareness becomes so heightened when I become still and quiet. We're usually quite distracted. I remember, I think I shared last time we met, being in it was a leader certification day. We had to take many sessions we have to do for professional development. I was laughing because there was someone training and they were doing functional aging. And so they were working with different portable equipment. They had the bands, those very tense, thick rubber bands. And they were very clear in their instruction, and they were demonstrating it as well. So there really was lots of opportunity to know what was going on. And they said, okay, I need you to place the band. And they told us verbally where to place the band on the lower leg, and they demonstrated it. And so I was really checking, they said on the instep, very clear, on the instep of the foot, place the band. And then as you sort of start to look around, you see the band everywhere. Around the ankles, around the calves. And they're demonstrating. They didn't just say it, they're actually demonstrating it. I'm thinking, where is our awareness? Where is our awareness? I mean, these are fitness leaders. They know anatomy. They know what instep means. They know what that means. So listening, silence allows me to listen. And I'm not just meaning external inputs, but listen in terms of what's going on when we're talking about movement, what's going on with my alignment. I become quiet and I listen. Where is my core? Where is my shoulder state? Like I listen, I become aware. My sensitivity to accuracy is heightened when I am silent and still. I'm in a very powerful observer stage. And so I can benefit. I can make corrections that are beneficial, in this case with alignment. And I love that because then you get so much more beautiful movement happening. And again, this is, I don't think it's an overt part of ballet training. No one ever talks about it, but it's what is cultivated. It's what naturally happens because ballet is one of those disciplines that is inordinately focused on alignment. So when you come into a ballet studio, sometimes you feel like you've come into a meditation studio because the vibe is so focused. Everyone's got this look in their eyes. They're so internally focused. I mean, they're receiving external inputs, lots of cues, corrections. They're taking that information. So they're listening to that. They're taking that information and then they're listening to, is the body able to use that? Is it able to practice what it's hearing? Am I able to implement those instructions? That requires being very, very aware. You can't be distracted, very quiet and sensitive and aware. And so it's just, and you see the results. You really see the results. Everyone's sort of got the same material to work with, but the difference really comes in terms of being able to take the instruction, become quiet, and align the body according to the instruction received. And so I always find this one of the most fascinating aspects of movement is to have that, we call it body awareness. And it's a very introverted art. If I'm busy looking around and comparing, how much weight I'm lifting to somebody else or comparing the depth of my squat to someone else, I'm missing a lot of information. And that is such a strong pull. So ego is the opponent of silence, of that accuracy. Ego is the opposite. My target is way off base. And it happens so much, because we really feel that, heavier and bigger and crazier must be more beneficial. And it's not that they're bad, but they can be quite dangerous without the basics Pauline was talking about, without the alignment. I get that first, and then I build on top of that. So I need to be very introverted, very focused, very much a clear observer, in this case, of the body's alignment. So yes, this translates into spirituality. There's actually a crossover between the two. So I found ballet at times quite spiritual. I was speaking to another soul the other day who also had ballet training through their lives, and we were both sharing how spiritual we actually found it, because it really cultivates the same skills one would need in spirituality. When we're talking about spirituality, especially Raj Yoga, this is spirituality for day-to-day life. So it's not a practice that's just about sitting quietly in a room. Raj Yoga was designed for integration, to move around, to live spiritually. So it's very similar to this principle in dance of becoming the same skill, very introverted, very attentive, very aware, which means very quiet, clear. What's the alignment inside? Even as you're sitting there, if you are sitting there right now, even though you're listening, are you still aware of the physical posture of the body? And is it accurate? Is it healthy? I mean, we've been sitting for the past 2 years, we've probably sat more than we did before. And I think many bodies have suffered. We don't actually know how to sit, or we don't pay attention. The body could be screaming in pain, and we don't quite know what to do with it. We're not paying attention to alignment. And so eventually the body starts to break down because it's just not healthy how we're using it. And it's not about necessarily, eventually there's an external intervention because it gets to such a state. So we start to do the massage and the physio and the chiro, and so for some, surgery. But well before it reached there, was I aware? Am I aware? And for that, I, the being, have to become quiet, internally focused, and listen. What's going on with the body? Now, yes, there is an educational piece to this. I need to know what proper alignment is. That's very important, and that's something that might be missing. When you tell people sit properly, they kind of do this weird thing with their body that actually is even more dangerous. So there's an educational piece, absolutely. And then there's the implementation, the experience of what I've heard. Can I actually connect to it, link to it, and apply it? That's really important. And all of that requires internal quiet to be able to do. Once it's done, once it's become a default, once it's become a habit, then I'm good to go. And we have a joke that you can spot a ballet dancer from a mile away because they train over and over and over that alignment, and it becomes their default setting. So they definitely stand a different way. They sit a different way, they move a different way after years of training. So once it's become my default, I'm good to go. But while that's becoming, I have to pay attention. I have to be quiet, listening. So with spirituality, of course, what alignment is to the body, we say that consciousness or awareness is to the soul. The alignment, the spiritual alignment of the self is consciousness. That is the foundations. That is the basics. I don't get to pass go. I don't get to go on to, okay, I'm going to apply virtues now and I'm going to be powerful and wise. I have to get, as Pauline was saying, I have to get the basics first. We often see, I remember it was a fascinating experiment. So it was a team-taught fitness class, and it was strength and body weight. And I was doing the body weight section, and another lovely colleague was doing the strength. This is with weights. And we decided to do a team-taught class, a fusion of these two disciplines. So the participants in the class had heavy weights, on a bar. And they do the squat. They do a squat series with this heavy weight. And then I would come in and say, okay, let's get rid of the weight. We're just going into body weight. Let's do the squats. And this was happening with all the exercises. First weighted and then unweighted body weight. And you would be surprised on which segment they were having challenge with. They actually were stopping and really having challenge with. And it was the body weight. The body weight was killing them. They were really, really challenged with it. And it's just so much focus. So this had on just alignment and executing the exercise with alignment, which is far more challenging. And this can happen spiritually. There's that metaphor spiritually of lifting heavier weights without having the foundation. And I start to feel heavy. I start to feel tired. I'm easily hurt. I'm hypersensitive. I'm irritated. And my heart feels like it's shrinking because I haven't got a strong foundation. So I start to lift heavier weights. I start to get involved in a bunch of projects. I think about what virtues I'm going to express and lots of different things that are part of spirituality, but not the foundation. And so really, really need to make sure my foundation is strong. What is the foundation in spirituality? We know core stability, skeletal alignment is the foundation for the body. But in spirituality, the foundation is consciousness. I am a spirit, a soul. That's why it's called spirituality. Just as humility is being humble, generosity is being generous, spirituality is being spirit. So I am spirit. I am a soul. Without that, we can't really use the word spirituality. Spirituality is not about recycling. I know this shocks people. That's not really, it's about the experience of being a spirit. And so I am a soul. Easy to say, easy even to think, but to implement, to practice, to experience, to become, it's a journey. And there is massive amounts of letting go in that particular alignment awareness, massive amounts of letting go. And that's why we say I am light, a point of light. I become so light because I'm letting go of so much. Not that I'm moving away from, there's a big difference. I don't move away from anything. I continue to stay in the body. I continue to, play my part, roles, everything. But this idea of being able to have that alignment while I'm doing those things is what actually keeps me light, very light. So we'll, towards the end, see if we can experiment with that basic foundation. And it does require stillness, silence, introversion to be able to have that experience of being a soul. Silence doesn't mean that there's no noise or stimuli going on around me, although many find that very helpful. So we go into an artificial environment called a meditation space. Silence is where there's no sound of anything temporary. And that's an internal. There's no thoughts around anything temporary. My job, my relationships, my this, my that, all of those are temporary. The package, the people, the possessions, the positions, all are temporary. They come and go. The package is the body, the people are the relationships, the possessions is the stuff, and the positions is the status, job, etc. They all come and go. You could have a job one day, lose it the next day, or move on. It all is temporary. So all those noises, those thoughts are just for the moment. We leave them, just like we leave our shoes outside the meditation room. I leave the shoes of worldly thoughts outside that inner meditation space. And just I come inside, just me, the thinker, the observer, the being, just me. So I'm not even the body, that's temporary too. So just I, the being, is present in that space. And I'm starting to feel that numbness towards the self starts to come back. So that's that inner alignment that we really want to focus on, practice. And that takes time and a deep interest. Have to be really, really interested, really want to do this, really want to do this. And what do we mean by we really want to do this? I have to feel that there is benefit or attainment in doing it, some sort of point or meaning to do it. I really have to be in love with the idea of doing this. And that applies, I see this so much. The particular studio where I am, it has basically two types of activities going on. I mean, different modalities, but it really boils down to two categories. Some are what we call more the mind-body classes, the yoga, the Pilates, and then we've got a bunch of athletic, crazy stuff going on. So there's weightlifting, there's cycling, there's interval training, all this stuff. So there's really these two categories. Which ones do you think are more popular, more well-attended? The mind-body or the athletic? Which do you think is more popular in terms of numbers?
Athletic.
Number two. Yeah, the athletic. In fact, we lose money on the mind-body. I'm very lucky because the owners of the studio really feel it's important. So they're willing to have the athletic subsidize the mind-body, even though they're losing money on them. They don't let them go. They know that they are the foundation of the athletic. So there is not the recognition that these are important. They're really not valued by most people. So they don't come to the class. They just don't see the value, the attainment. You know, and I know for me, if I'm going to work out, you know, people say, okay, I have 45 minutes to work out. Now, how are they thinking about that 45 minutes? They often will say, I have 45 minutes to lift weights. For me, it's like, I have 25 minutes to lift weights and 20 minutes to stretch. That's always how I think. And if there isn't enough time, I'm not doing the workout. If I only have 30 minutes, then it's like, okay, 20 minutes workout, 10 minutes. I don't know. I don't know if I'm really going to get anywhere. I never think of a workout period as without the stretch, without that mind-body piece. That is. But again, it's not of interest to many souls. They don't feel that they're progressing, developing, getting anywhere. There's attainment. This can happen spiritually as well. We have many programs where the way we structure them is we say we're going to do a public program, a talk, and we have a guest lecture. Now in our flyers, I know it's not always the case, but in our flyers, we say the program starts at 6 o'clock. And then we'll break it down. We'll say meditation from 6 to 6:30 and the lecture from 6:30 to 7:30. When do you think souls show up? A handful show up at 6 o'clock. Most show up at 6:30. It's a way of thinking. Where's the attainment? Where's the attainment? Sorry, Hema, you were following. I saw you unmute. Where is the attainment? It's not about guilting people. It has to come from inside. I really have to enjoy this, feel benefit. It has to. It's not going to be sustainable. I really have to feel internally that this would be such a delicious thing. I love stretching. I'm not going to lie to you. I love it. So you're not going to have to twist my arm to fit that time in. I will spend a very long time. I'm not kidding about the ratio. It is about 40-60. So really, it's the same with spirituality. Do I find there's attainment in focusing on this foundation? Or do I just want to jump ahead? Pauline, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. So I was just reflecting on what you've shared about, the interest of the mind, body, and physicality, and in the spiritual side. So I just had a thought that for my personal clients in massage therapy, most of them are not paying attention for flexibility and mobility. And as they age, they come to me and complain about pain and all sorts of discomforts. And then the same with spirituality. When we are non-mobile and non-flexible, we become more attached to the world. We are not able to be more, I would say, spiritually flexible or adaptable or soul conscious, because of the ego and all the attachments. So physical mobility and flexibility versus spiritual mobility and flexibility, I feel like they're really work together.
It's funny you mention that, because the last two, and I know we're running out of time, so I'll try and be brief, but the last two professional development days I've attended, the second one was actually, I spoke about it in the session I was doing, but there was something that came up that is called fascia. And fascia is like the new point of focus in the fitness industry. There's a lot of interest in fascia. If you've ever heard of rolling, that's, people have talked about myofascial release and all these things. So fascia, it's really of interest. And this first session I was in, luckily, is someone who's very interested in it and has really attended, quite in-depth sessions on it. And this is related to where you're going, because it's the rigidity of the fascia that's the problem. So fascia is everywhere. Spiritually speaking, it's a wonderful spiritual matter. It is everywhere in the body. Rolling will not get to it. The only reason that all the physical organs don't fall down in the torso cavity is because they're in slings of fascia. It's everywhere. It's wrapped around every muscle filament. Like, it's everywhere in the body, everywhere. And it's more sensitive than the nervous system. So it's aware of what's going on before your nervous system even becomes aware. It's like called the sixth sense. It's a very interesting aspect of the body. And when it is healthy, the way they describe it when it's healthy is the same description we use for the soul when it's healthy, when we're soul conscious. It's pretty much the same. It's lightness, grace, flexibility, suppleness, movement, flow. I'm listening to this and I'm like, okay, that sounds like what we want to be spiritually. It's so similar, so similar. And, the idea of how do we get this healthy fascia? Some think, I'll just hydrate, I'll drink water. It doesn't work. That's not how the fascia stays very supple, and doesn't work. Okay, well, I'll just roll and roll. You won't get to it all. Doesn't work. It's a very specific kind of, movements we need to be doing that actually keep the fascia healthy. And actually, one of the top is dance, because it has rotation, it has movement through different planes. The activities that ego likes to do are almost counterintuitive to what's healthy fascia is about. So ego interferes with healthy fascia, if you will. Most people are so self-conscious, they won't put their foot into a body class, right? Into a dance class. They just feel too embarrassed. And yet that is the kind of movement over and over that is fantastic for healthy fascia. So this fascia that likes a specific kind of movement, very flowing, very full body, very integrated, this tense, rigid movement isn't necessarily helping out the fascia. And if I'm not doing other activity in addition to it, it's been described as like saran wrap. And when it's healthy, it's smooth and fluid. And when it's not, it starts to get very crinkly. So this is how it's been described. So Similarly, when it comes to spirituality, you know, the soul consciousness is a bit like fascia, a healthy soul, and particular kinds of activities help that, and particular types of activities inhibit it. And those that are driven by ego, if you will, image management, do promote rigidity and heaviness and crinkliness. Right? So not very healthy to the heart, if you will, to the spirit. But if we have these other kinds of movements that really water that soul consciousness, really water it. We want soul consciousness to be wrapped around everything we do. We want everything we do to be wrapped in that soul consciousness, because then it becomes very graceful, gracious, royal, light, elegant, springy. We start to move through the world with that dignity when our activities are wrapped in soul consciousness. We want that to be our spiritual fascia. So it's our alignment, it's our fascia, it's everything. So definitely this practice, becoming quiet and experiencing the very foundation of spirituality. I am a spirit. And then really experimenting with holding that awareness, that alignment, as I come into action. So the qualities of the soul color or drive my activity. It's going from the inside out as opposed to the outside in, driving my activity. So I don't know if I see the time. I see we've run out of time. Is there anything anyone wants to add or share before we have a little bit of a reflection to close? Are we okay? Yes, Pauline, go ahead.
I just want to share on your reflection today that what is your state of mind at the moment. So I was kind of reflecting, about that integration this morning. I know that if ego comes in about, the expectation of the souls, that I have to do this, but when I come to that inner stillness of myself, I actually felt free and liberated, because I performed the action not to please anyone or, to impress anyone, but because it's something that, comes out with me, and it's something that I'm passionate to do. And I'm also connecting with God as my company. So that give me really inner strength. And that's how I felt after that. I'm liberated and I'm free and content after the class. Thank you.
Lovely. Yes, and you brought up the G word, God, and what does that have to do with all of this? So I think of, when someone's injured in fitness, the major knee ligament, there's some pretty serious ones that can happen. If someone's injured, yes, we want to get the alignment back, but due to that injury, they usually have to wear a brace to hold the alignment. And that's how, I know it's not very dignified, perhaps, or royal, but that's how I really think of God, as the brace. I have to be so conscious, I have to get into that alignment, and that being is going to help me to hold that alignment as I come into activity. So I heal my relationship with action. So yes, both are quite critical. Let's take a moment, just a few moments of reflection, see if we can go into just that quiet state. The beauty of all of this is there's no fail. It's all experiments and discovery. There's no fail. So let's see what we can discover in these last few minutes. I take a moment to become aware of the body, completely focused on the physical body. I go through the day with this body, and very often I'm quite unaware of it. Even though I'm moving with it, I'm not aware of the alignment, the posture, the placement. I sometimes am not even aware of signals of pain the body is sending until they become quite acute. So now let me just practice becoming aware at the physical level. And I'll notice how quiet I become, just to be aware at the physical level. I begin on an easy thing, the breath of the body. When the body breathes, ideally, the lungs expand, the diaphragm expands in 3 dimensions into the back. So the ribs actually expand. Doesn't necessarily have to go into the belly, because it's the lungs that I want to expand. Can I feel that when I breathe? For many of us, the breath has become shallow and rigid, stuck. The ribs are stuck. But let me just observe, I, the being, observing the body as if from a distance. Does my diaphragm, the ribs, do they expand as the body breathes? Going a little deeper, the heartbeat. When in a state of health, the heartbeat is slow and strong. If I am anxious, uncertain, confused, frightened, the heartbeat will change. I see if I can observe, touch, experience the heartbeat of the body, listening. Naturally become quiet. No other thoughts. A single focus. The heartbeat. Now that I've practiced, I turn my attention to something more subtle, not physical at all. The self. I turn my attention upwards to that place behind the forehead from where it feels thoughts originate. That's me thinking. Not the brain, not the body, me, the being inside this body. I have the feeling of sitting in the penthouse of a very tall building, this body. And I am here, looking out through the eyes, listening through the ears, observing, thinking, a quiet point, this temporary body wrapped around me like a heavy coat. I am so subtle, such light energy, very delicate. I become very quiet, so I can come closer and closer to simply experiencing myself. I am the life in this body. very unique energy, living energy. In fact, the lungs are working, the heart is beating because I am in this body. I make this body living. Otherwise, it's just oxygen, hydrogen, carbon, just elements, matter. I, the being, I give it life. I'm a beautiful, living light spark of spiritual energy, able to think and feel, experience and express the wonder of I, the soul. Listening, so I can hear myself, experience myself, not the body, me, the being. In the stillness and silence, the sound of the self is peaceful, so calm. I am a point of living peace. I am spiritually aligned. Can I maintain this alignment as I come into action and interaction, integrate a sense of self into day-to-day life? Om Shanti. Thank you so much for joining, and we look forward to the next time. So again, this is every Saturday, different formats. Might be an interview next week. Who knows? You may know before we do. So, but hopefully you're able to join.